could take the stage, but you know, I'm not that tall, and even when I got on stage, I cannot even see you guys in the back. So I'm trying to just walk around and try to get a little bit closer to you guys, because the distance is very far from this stage here. Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you very much for coming, for allowing me to come here, and thank you very much for you guys to showing up to this presentation. I am an author, speaker, and strategic advisor on the topics up here. I very much work with large organizations. I have the fortune to travel the world and work with what I call corporate innovation teams in large organizations. But you know, when large corporates want to do innovation, they also very much want to connect with smaller companies, SMEs and startups. And those are some of the things I'll cover today. I'm actually going to cover three things. I'll give you my overview of what's happening with innovation management today. I'm going to go in and explain what open innovation is and how this is working in the context of SMEs and large SMEs and startups as well. I'm also going to give you my very quick insights if you want to have a career working with innovation. Just a quick question to the technical guys. I have very much of an echo on the mic. Is it because I'm standing here? Do you want me to get on stage? I'm going to get back on stage here. We'll get a better sound. Sorry. Okay. So let me just get started by sharing some of my overall perspective on what's happening with innovation today. And I in particular see that we have three global megatrends driving innovation. And I think the two first ones are quite obvious, and that is that everything just moves so much faster today, right? I mean, the pace of business, the pace of innovation is just so fast today. It's just mind-boggling. And we're also seeing that the world is just getting smaller and smaller, and everyone is getting to be connected with each other. And then the third one is something where I see that people are actually starting to pay attention a little more, because I haven't heard this one this often. But we also need to take into account the transparency of knowledge. And let me give you some examples what I mean by the transparency of knowledge. Istanbul is a very nice place to go, and they have lots of startups there. They have a startup bootcamp Istanbul coming up right now, and I have a very bad echo. Is it just up here? Yeah. So when we look at a startup today, do you know, they have lost the key edge. The key edge of a startup was the ability to go in stealth mode. Imagine that you have a great idea, and you go out there and say, I have this idea, you get funded, and then for 1 or 2 years you can go in stealth mode and you can just grow your business and kind of be quiet about it, and then one day you're ready to launch and you can just take off. That cannot happen anymore. If you have a startup at Startup Bootcamp Istanbul, which gets €1 million in funding, the entire venture capital community globally will know about this in just 2 weeks. They'll share it on social media, on blogs, on journals, on lists of who gets funded for how much and what. So what happens is that venture capitalists and startups in Brisbane, in Australia, in Copenhagen, maybe in Vilnius, in London or Silicon Valley will say, okay, it's interesting that these startups are starting to get funded. We need to do the same thing. And because of this transparency of knowledge, transparency of activity, we're going to see not just one company trying to make or break it within this area. They're going to have 5, 10, 20 competitors immediately. They lost this ability to go into stealth mode. One of the things is that small companies, startups, venture capitalists, they just live by this one, the transparency of knowledge. But you know, big companies, they don't get it. They're too slow, they're too dumb sometimes. They don't listen to markets. They're very bad at listening to markets because they need to focus on what's happening within the large organization. So then that's set up to listen to things like this one. It might take them 3, 6, or 9 months to find out what's happening in these circles. In the future, however, just 3, 5 years from now, big companies will become much better at listening here. And that's why in the future, big companies will become much better at innovation as well. I'm going to show you some more things on that too. You have Starbucks here in Vilnius? No? But let me guess, you all know about Starbucks, but how many of you guys have been to my Starbucks idea? Anyone? Yeah, I actually got a few people raising their hands. A few people have been to my Starbucks idea. I like this place because You can go to My Starbucks Idea and share your idea on anything regarding Starbucks. You want new toilet paper, you want new payment systems, you want new drink flavors, you can suggest anything. But what we can also see with Starbucks is that it's crowdsourcing, but it's crowdsourcing more towards the marketing side. Crowdsourcing usually goes in two ways, either towards marketing or towards innovation or new products and services. This is very much a marketing play. It's also very successful. You know, they got over 400,000 ideas in just 4 years. 400,000 ideas, that's a lot. The implementation rate, 0.0014%. They don't care about implementation, it's all about marketing. But being able to get these many ideas, and when we see so many other crowdsourcing activities out there, something is happening here. And what we can see is that the front end of innovation, this part about getting ideas is getting so much easier. I mean, ideas are everywhere today. If you guys have ideas and think you're powerful because of having an idea, or think that you're a genius because you have an idea, forget about it. You haven't really understood what's happening here. Ideas are in abundance. What's really important is not getting ideas, but how you execute on the ideas. How do you work with a team to execute on these ideas? How do you work with an ecosystem to execute on these ideas? So focus is shifting away from what we call the front end of innovation to the back end of innovation, more about the execution part of it. And this is a very important driver in how large organizations are setting up their innovation capabilities today. I really like Tesla. They make some very nice cars. And they are also a very disruptive company. They disrupted the car industry with the Tesla cars not so long ago, but you can also see they have this box up here. This is actually a power box. Out of the blue, just 6 months ago, Tesla came out and said that, well, now we want to play in the industry about energy management, the smart grid. And they launched this one, the power box, which allows people, households, ordinary homes, to put this box up and then tap into renewable energy from windmills or solar energy and store the excess energy they don't use immediately so they can use it for later. It has been a big problem within the energy industry. How do you store the excess energy from renewable energies? Tesla is a car making company, but suddenly now they also play in this field. Tesla is a very good example of a disruptive company. They've been able to do this in 2 industries now within 6 years. And the founder, Elon Musk, has been doing this forever, since he actually was born almost. Something that's very important to note about disruption is it's going to hit much harder and much faster than ever before. And that's a very interesting opportunity for startups, because it's still today startups that drive the disruption. Big companies are too slow. Let me go in and talk a little bit about open innovation. And I'm just a bit curious, just by show of hands, how many of you guys in this room think that you have a pretty good understanding of what open innovation is? I have about 8 people raising their hands saying they have a good understanding what open innovation is. Let me try the other way around. How many of you guys do not really know what open innovation is at all? For whom of you, open innovation might be a completely new word. Got about the same. So we got more people who've never heard about open innovation than actually say they're very good at it. Open innovation is more like a philosophy, a mindset that allows your organization, big or small, to work with external partners just as naturally as you would do with your internal partners or internal resources. It's not something you can call a consulting agency or McKinsey or someone say, we would like to have the open innovation capability in our place, because it's something that happens inside people's head. It's about mindset. It's about a philosophy that allows you to think like this. I'm a bit sorry to say at this point, you guys here in Lithuania and Vilnius, in the Baltic region, you have some difficulties, because, I'm sorry to say so, I've been here like twice a year for quite a while now, and met with lots of Lithuanians, spoken to lots of outsiders as well here. You guys are not natural networkers. You like to stay at home and just be with the ones you already know, and you're not that good at just opening up to strangers and new business ideas. So the idea of open innovation might be a bit strange to many of you and hard to adapt within your society, within your businesses. We have the same problem in Denmark. I'm from Copenhagen. We just don't get it in Denmark. We're quite similar to you guys. Danish industry is going to have a big, serious problem in a few years because we do not understand open innovation. And you might be making the same mistake here in the Baltics. We need to change that. I wrote a book, 7 Steps for Open Innovation. It's a free ebook. I like to write a lot of stuff and just give it away. So you can go to my website on Innovation Upgrade and just download those books. But here you can get an introduction of what open innovation is and see how it can work for you guys. We can also just take a quick talk about which industries are going to be more ready for open innovation or not. And I'm working on these factors here: cycle time. How long time does it take to bring out new products or services? How much money does it require? And how about intellectual property? And the more money you need, the longer time it takes, and the more intellectual property it requires, you're going to be on this side here. It's going to take quite some time for the industry to really adapt open innovation, if at all. So pharma is struggling this one. You see, they really try to work with biotech companies, but that's pretty much as close as they get to it. If you have a fast-moving consumer good company, like Procter & Gamble. If you're a fast-moving consumer good company, big company, SME, or startup, if you're not already working very well on open innovation and crowdsourcing activities, you're 3 or 4 years behind. You have a very serious catch-up to deal with. And then you can go in and map in where your industry would be, and more interesting, how well is your country or company doing compared to others in these areas. And when we look at open innovation, we can go in and discuss what I call value pools, especially on the external side, over on this side here: suppliers, academics, institutions, universities, venture capitalists, or startups. If you take a large organization having 1,000 people and above, 1,000 employees and above, they will have 8, 10, or 12 different value pools to work with. So, and for some companies, it might be that they're working with the users or consumers as someone they tap into for innovation efforts. It might be that they're working with suppliers, venture capitalists, or startups. The thing is that companies, even the companies that do well with open innovation, really try to make this happen, are very committed to it. They can only work with 2 or 3 value pools at the same time. And what we're seeing, the picture we're seeing is that suppliers, you all see, big companies are always working with the suppliers on innovation. And if you're a business-to-consumer company, of course you'll also work with your users and your consumers. That's 2 out of 2 or 3, so now you're already getting to the limit. I know some of you guys are coming from universities here. Bad news for you guys. Universities used to be one of the very sure top 3 pick for large organizations to work with on innovation, but they're bypassing you guys. You're too slow, you're too expensive, you're too difficult to work with. That's the messages I hear from corporate innovators around the world. And there's another thing happening, because the most relevant, the most active, the hottest pool of engagement right now will be the startups. Large organizations are so interested in working with startups and SMEs today. They're experimenting on so many different ways of doing this. Corporate accelerators, labs, entrepreneurs in residence programs, boot camps, they're doing so many different things. But also go back to the universities. You know, many of these startups, they actually come from the university circles. They originate from the universities. And some of the companies working for open innovation have been pretty smart here and say, why should we go and work with the tech transfer offices of the universities, which can be a bit slow and expensive, when we can work directly with the startups? We just bypass the universities and go and work with the startups. So there's some reasons why universities are dropping down the list, and there's some good reason why startups are moving up on the list. When we go to look at open innovation, those interactions can happen in many different ways. And I like how we can look at the invitation level here. You can work with everyone, or you can work with relatively few people. You can give lots of instructions, or you can give no instructions at all. This is where my startups idea will fall in here. It's crowdsourcing at its most pure form for marketing purposes. So everyone can join, and there's no instruction. You can suggest anything there. If you go up and work with what we call innovation intermediaries, you have professional companies who will go out there and help companies with a problem or challenge. You can also call this challenge-driven innovation, or if they have an opportunity to pursue, They will go in and be the mediator, connect millions of people over here with the company having the problem or the solution to pursue. And they have process for doing so. The thing about open innovation is the large organizations need to find out which value pool to go in and work with, and they also need to find out what type of exchange, what type of interaction should they have here. And again, building further about big companies and SMEs and startups, how do they work together? If we look at open innovation as a minibus, imagine someone, we actually got the room for it here today, someone drove in a 12-seater minibus right here. The driver will come from a large organization. They're the ones who initiate these kind of minibuses, projects. And large organizations can have 10, 20, 30, hundreds of those buses, projects out there. So they go in and put themselves in the driver's seat, and then they look around and say, oh, I like you, come aboard, join my bus, and you, and you, and you, and you. So they take different resources, depending on the project they're working on. And they can come from universities, they can come from startups or users, again, the value pools they choose from, and bring them on board for this specific project. We can call this the ecosystem. So they built this ecosystem. Big companies on the driver's seat. I'm sorry to say so, but small companies and SMEs will take the back seat. And they need to ask themselves some interesting questions. So I do not get much influence here, but they still need to ask themselves a question. Can we grow more by ourselves? Just being here in Lithuania and just do everything by ourselves? Or can we grow more together with others in a global ecosystem, maybe in a virtual ecosystem? If you believe the second answer is the right one, you'll get on board that bus and pursue your opportunities here. Also mentioned that accelerators and incubators and challenges and competitions are ways in which we see so much activities from large organizations. And you need to know how it works to see how you can tap into these opportunities. I know you have some government people here as well. You need to know more about these things and how you can help your ecosystem of startups and SMEs here in Lithuania to connect with these global organizations doing these things. We also have corporate venture, where you saw large organizations go out there, invest directly in startups. It's really mixing together corporate venture with what we could call open innovation today. I just put this one quite fast because there's actually also some differences between big and small companies, no wonder. But here you can see some of them. And the one I would like to get to is the last one. Do we actually speak the same language? And I think we have a challenge here because this conference is called Innovation Drift. So many things have the name innovation to it, and we don't really even know what the word or the term innovation means. If I ask you guys, I get 20 different definitions here. I'm actually trying to pursue this idea that we should stop talking so much about innovation. I know I'm guilty myself. I have a website called Innovation Upgrade. So I talk about this as well. We need to stick with the word in some ways, but we need to be careful how we actually define it, especially when we're going to talk about what we call an innovation culture. Do you know why so many companies have difficulties creating an innovation culture? It's very simple. They cannot define what innovation means to them. How can you create a culture of something you cannot define? That's a struggle to me. But we also have this thing about innovation and entrepreneurship. It's not the same thing. Let me explain it like this one. We got this very interesting company here in Lithuania, Ruptila, about 150 people. He gave a talk here earlier today, the CEO of the year, a very successful company. But I would argue that Ruptila is not really doing innovation. They're getting to the breaking point, but today it's more about entrepreneurship. And where I would like to make the distinction here is that entrepreneurship is do or die based on the market. If you have a company, 5, 10, 15 people, maybe even 150 people, and you only have one product line or one service line, if you don't succeed with that, you don't have a company anymore. I started 3 companies myself. We grew to 7, 8, or 9 people 3 times, and then we just collapsed. I don't have anything left from that, it's just gone. So if you don't make it as a startup with entrepreneurship, you're dead, you're gone. You can go out there and use your experiences to try something else. becomes interesting, and where I think we need to make this distinction between entrepreneurship, do or die, whether it's innovation, where you have strategic choices to make. A company like Ruptile is a very good example here. It's getting to the point where it has established itself. It's going to survive in some way or the other. How it's going to grow, it's going to be the big question. Should they continue investing in just one or two product lines or service areas? Or should they expand into a second or third? Whoa, they got some strategic choices to make. And this is where we go in and talk about innovation. And this is where we talk about innovation management. But you should be very careful pushing the word innovation too much on your companies in Lithuania if they're primarily 3, 5, 10, 15, or 20 people. It's going to bring more confusion than good, probably. Let me just spend 4 minutes on innovation as a career choice. And I can definitely tell you, especially if we've got engineers here today, what got you into the game 10 years ago will not make it today. That's only table stakes. It'll only get you to the table. It will not allow you to succeed. So what I like to talk about here is what we can call the T-shape. And the T-shape is interesting enough that you really need to have something of depth, a key skill to contribute with to a market or to a company. It might be that you're a very skilled engineer, a very strong salesperson, you have very good experience in how to work in China. You have something significant to contribute with. But it's not enough. It's not enough to just be an engineer, not even a good engineer today. You also need to have the top, the horizon. You need the disposition for collaboration across disciplines. Many engineers struggle on this. They believe we know how to solve problems, that's what we do, we don't care about the other business functions. So what you're trying to actually create on your teams is something that consists of both I-shapes and T-shapes. You need the both. You need the both here, the combination. You need someone who has a very talented ability, but who can also have the empathy for other business functions. That's something you need to cultivate within your organizations. 8 things here. I often help companies recruit people for the entrepreneurship projects or just for innovation in general. These are some of the things I look at here, and I just want to point out the last ones here. Innovation today has become so much about networking and communication skills. The reason is that innovation today is very much about working with stakeholders, internal stakeholders in the organization or external stakeholders within an ecosystem. So you need to become very good at communication in a broad sense. And communication in a broad sense means that traditional PR branding, that's fine. But it's also about stakeholder management, networking capabilities, and it's about how to use social media. Just look here, General Mills, GWIN, it's an American food company. You see how many external partners they're actually dealing with. Being able to navigate in a field like this, it's not enough to be good within a specific field, you also need to be a good communicator. And I'll kind of talk a little about it here. So I'm at 1:58, and we actually still have 3, 4, 5 minutes left. To be honest, I've been here in the Baltics quite often over the years, and sometimes I struggle to see whether this actually resonates with you guys, again, because you have so many small companies here. And also, to be a bit hard on you guys, you still need to learn a lot. But I would advise you to learn more about entrepreneurship, rather than go out there and take the big books about innovation management and such, because you're at states in your country where you need to go in and get entrepreneurship right, and then you need to pay very much attention to companies Ruptile, getting to the stage where they need to consider how can we move from entrepreneurship, do and die, to innovation management. That's a chasm I see that many of your companies are in right now. If you have any questions, any reflections on this one, if you think I can help you in some way, just send some direct, specific questions. I'll try to do this as much as possible. And Andrea, I think we have time for a few questions here as well.
Yes, we have time for questions. Anybody wants to ask a question?
Thank you. There's a question over here.
Yeah.
or actually two. I really appreciate that. I know you guys are basketball people, but not getting questions like that. You see sometimes on a basketball when you watch the NBA, you try to do a high five, and no one comes and gives you one. It's kind of, when you feel like that. Thanks for the questions.
Thank you very much for presentation. And at the very beginning, either I skipped or I haven't heard the answer regarding open innovation term and that it will disappear in 5 to 7 years. How come or why?
Because today we talk about innovation in the sense it's very much about R&D, it's very much about technology or products, and it's very much about internal resources. The future of innovation, and we started that transition a few years ago, is that an address that innovation is also about business model, process and services. It's also about external resources. The transition we're in right now means that 5-7 years from now, we do not distinguish between innovation or open innovation, because the two things will melt together and just become innovation. But we'll have a much higher element of external collaboration than what we see today. But you can look at Procter & Gamble. They are the company probably the furthest ahead on this one. And they don't distinguish whether the input for the innovation efforts come from the outside or inside. They don't say this is open innovation and this is internal innovation. It's just innovation. And it's important because don't spend too much time setting up an open innovation structure, open innovation system. You need someone who can help you get started with these things. But you need to be very aware that it's going to melt together. We're just going to see this high-level external input. Okay? Yeah. We had another question over here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can somebody bring a mic to there?
Can you yell? Okay. Yeah.
Me to come? Let's go.
There's a microphone in the back coming.
My name is Andrius Pleškaitis. I'm coming from Infobalt ICT Association here in Lithuania. And we have a kind of grassroots facility here for open innovation where we teach based on the principles of the open innovation. The students, they get the first skills of how to collaborate, and we teach the companies at the same time because the cases, the challenges are coming from the companies, and we build student teams around. So this is kind of a playground we have for the students to get the first skills and to learn how to innovate in teams together with some people they didn't know before. But my question would be, how can we bring this, from your perspective, how can we bring this to adult world between the companies and the universities? I think this is really challenging. And what is the key points here to open up? Thank you.
You kind of hinted at it in your question because you're teaching them skills. And you're trying to give them a toolbox. Your problem here in Lithuania, just as it is in Denmark, it has to be more about mindset and behaviors. It's more about what happens inside the head. I mean, I spent quite some time in Denmark figuring out why do Danish companies not embrace open innovation? And then I started speaking with some Chinese people and German people working in Danish companies, and they said, you know how it is to be a foreigner in Denmark? I mean, Danish people are world class to work with in collaboration, and they're very nice people once you get to know them. But in Denmark, we look at people and say, you look quite interesting over there, but you do some cool stuff, but let's just see how this works out. Let's just spend 6 months just looking at each other. And it's probably the same here. When it gets dark up here, you can say, we just stay at home, we don't really go out, you don't really mix with others. So it's more about a societal issue we have, that we need to train to become better networkers, be more open to explore others. Because you know the difference between us and Americans? If the Americans see an interesting opportunity, they just say, oh, that's interesting, let's go to bed. I mean, let's work together. Us guys, we can't look at this and say, let's wait 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. The problem is, we don't have 1 year. Business is moving too fast. So we need to change that mentality towards networking. That's what I would focus on, because if you do that, there's so many support systems to make innovation happen by itself. The big impact will be about the mentality.